Now, I've talked in the past about doing more of the things that bring you true joy and finding out exactly what that looks like. For many of us, it's the things that we used to do when we were younger, and usually we stopped doing them when we started drinking. It can be quite easy to work out what it is. For many people, it's the thing that when they do it, they become so immersed that hours start to feel like minutes. For me, I worked out that it was drawing and painting and also writing. Obviously, I've written 3 books, so it's definitely a passion of mine. And it's really important as you move into an alcohol-free lifestyle to work out what that is for you. But it comes with a word of warning, because I don't want what's just happened to me to happen to you. So a few weeks ago, I started an art class at a local college. I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I committed to learning something new this year. So I headed along with my paints and my pencils in hand to do something that I loved. So how did this end up with me not feeling good enough about myself? And what can I do about it when that feeling does come up? So the first week went great. We were asked to do a sketch of a flower, and I did this, which I'm quite happy with. And some of the other drawings and things that I've done, I've been really pleased with. I came away from the first class feeling great. I was particularly proud of my tiger drawing, which I was really happy with. I felt so good about myself. My self-esteem had been boosted. But then last week, we were asked to paint the flower that we'd drawn in the first week. I immediately felt a little bit anxious. It was well outside of my comfort zone. Some of the other people in the class are really good artists, and I was worried that my work just wasn't going to stack up. And this is what I came up with. So this is my version of the flower that I painted in the first week. To me, it felt like a mess. It just didn't feel good enough. Now, you might look at it on the screen and think, Simon, it's okay, it's not bad. You probably wouldn't hang it on your wall. I definitely wouldn't. And in fact, I almost threw it in the bin when I was doing the painting. And at the end of the class, everybody had to walk around and look at what other people had done. And I felt a sense of shame. I just wasn't happy with it. Of course, this was all in me, but I came away from that particular class feeling like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't as good as the other students. My painting wasn't up to standard. I started wondering why I was even bothering. Yeah, I knew that I'd produced some pretty good pieces of work previously. So I wanted to make sure that I learned how to overcome that feeling when we just don't feel good enough, because I hear it time and time again, especially when people are drinking regularly or drinking heavily. They often have this underlying sense that in some way they're just not good enough. So after the class, I started to do some research. I was very aware of what I was feeling. Over the years since I've not been drinking, I've become acutely aware of how I'm feeling at any given moment. But this was a really strong feeling, that feeling of not being good enough. And I wanted to make sure I equipped myself with the tools so that I could navigate my way through it and come out the other side and continue enjoying my art class. After all, this is a passion, it's a hobby, it's meant to be something that allows me to relax and immerse myself in something that I love. I shouldn't be feeling these negative feelings when I'm simply drawing or painting. So the first thing that I learned is that the people that I'm comparing myself are comparing themselves to other people too. They may have the exact same feelings going on. And in fact, a couple of people, when I was looking at their work, made comments along those lines of like, well, it's not that good. I thought it looked good. I thought it looked great. Of course, it's a matter of opinion. So know that when you're comparing yourself to other people, they're also comparing themselves to other people too. I also realised that our minds can be very convincing liars. Some of these people who were telling me that they didn't think their work was very good either had created a brilliant painting. It looked absolutely fantastic. And as I mentioned, you might think my painting looked fantastic, or at least half decent. Our minds can be convincing. They can convince us that what we've created or what we've done or what we've said is simply not good enough. And over time, it can become a default position. Our self-esteem can take a knock, and we end up believing that anything we say, anything we do, simply is not good enough. So know that we have around 80,000 thoughts a day. These are just thoughts that enter our head. As soon as we latch onto them, grab hold of them, start giving them energy, they expand and they can take over. The key in all of this is staying fully present, staying in the moment, allowing those thoughts to pass away, trying not to engage with them, and knowing that our mind will play tricks on us if we allow it to. It's also important to acknowledge that we're all made up of many, many parts. And I believe part of this journey to living an alcohol-free lifestyle and really understanding ourselves better is about knowing all of those parts of ourselves. I like to describe it a bit like a fruitcake, a cake that's made up of many, many different ingredients. And there can be wonderful parts to all of us. There can be dark parts. There can be parts in the middle. It's all about knowing the different parts. We have beautiful parts. We have parts which are things that we're not very good at, parts that are things that we're amazing at, things that we're very talented with. But when we're drinking daily or regularly, we tend not to even look at these different parts of ourselves, especially the darker parts. We tend to push those away. There might be times when you judge people, times when you're rude to people, for example, times when you have angry outbursts, yet you ignore those parts of yourself because you just don't ever want to look at them. They feel too uncomfortable. But when you can bring the dark parts out into the light, they lose their power. And part of this process is all about acknowledging all the parts of yourself. The more parts of yourself that you can acknowledge, not only are you going to understand yourself way better, you're going to be able to take steps to improve the areas of your life that you think you need to work on. And equally, you're going to become a better person because you're going to have a happier life. You can literally shape your life around the person that you are. But when you don't understand the person that you are, how can you ever shape your life around it? How can you set boundaries? How can you do more of what you love? So know that our mind will plague us with constant thoughts. Know that you can switch off that thinking part of your brain if you want to. You can bring yourself into the moment when you're concentrating completely on something. It could just be a leaf on the floor. It could just be this video. When you're 100% concentrating on something, your mind cannot be overwhelmed by thoughts. You're not in the future, you're not in the past, you're in the now. And when you're in the now, those thoughts have absolutely zero power. It's also important to understand that in the moments when we feel like we least deserve love, we least deserve recognition, they're actually the moments when we really need those things. So try to pay attention to what's happening in your own experience. If you feel like nobody loves me, I'm unworthy of love, that is a signpost. That is a message that you actually need to feel loved. You need connection. And the key is knowing where you can find that. If you need connection, can you call a friend and go and meet them for a coffee? Speak to a family member who's trusted and always looks out for you. Try and have those things close to hand, close to mind, so you know that you've got someone on hand in the times when you need love the most. And believe me, the time when you need love the most is when you feel like you deserve it the least. It's also really important to focus on progress rather than trying to achieve perfection. And of course, I was trying to achieve perfection with my painting. I didn't stop to think about the fact that my drawing had improved significantly over the weeks that I'd been attending the class. And in fact, my painting had. I just found that one particularly challenging. I'd definitely improved. I was definitely making steps forward. I've definitely become a better artist in the short time that I've been attending the course. But I didn't stop to look at my progress versus my pursuit of perfection. And it's clear that I'm getting better and better all the time. And the same applies if you're trying to quit drinking. There's bound to be times when you experience challenging moments. Maybe you have a setback. It's all about looking at the bigger picture, and instead of thinking constantly about perfection, think about the progress that you're making as you move forwards. Just like quitting drinking, learning to overcome that feeling of not being good enough is all about cultivating a sense of self-awareness. It's about noticing what's happening to ourselves. Thankfully, when we remove alcohol from our lives, it creates enough space that we become able to do this. And one of the things you can start catching yourself doing is when you're comparing yourself to others, which absolutely I was doing. Thankfully, I noticed it fairly quickly. But social media can be a dangerous place when it comes to comparing. Many people on social media present themselves to the world in a certain light. A light that they want to be seen in. It doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate. They don't show all the parts of themselves on social media. And it can cause us to feel envy. It can cause us to feel resentment or jealousy. But notice whatever's coming up in your experience. And it might be that you need to take some time away from social media. Set some boundaries with certain people. Block certain people from your feed if you feel it's necessary. It's all about looking after your own emotional well-being. If you're finding something is emotionally triggering, think about whether you need to set a boundary, whether you need to take a time out from that particular content or a time out from that particular social media platform. And I'm talking about it in the context of social media. It can happen in just about every area of life. But the key in all of it is noticing when it's happening, understanding that that is happening within you in that moment. You're feeling like you're comparing yourself to somebody else. You're feeling like you're not good enough. Notice that it's happening and take some steps to look after yourself, whether that's removing yourself from the situation, coming and watching a video like this and just having a reset, or just taking a time out and allowing yourself to get back online emotionally. Whatever it is you need, make sure you take care of yourself in those moments, but it all starts with noticing it. Another great thing you can do to overcome that feeling of not being good enough is to keep a success box. Now, I'm in a really fortunate position where I get lots of emails from people who watch my videos, they read my books, and they send me nice messages. A great thing to do is print off those kind of emails or certificates or anything that represents the accomplishments in your life and keep them in a shoebox, a success box that you can look at any time where you're having that feeling that in some way you're not good enough. It will help you acknowledge the beautiful parts of yourself. It will help you notice the qualities that you do have, because we all have many, many qualities, many beautiful parts. As I mentioned earlier, we're all made up of different parts. There's dark parts, there's good parts, and there's parts in the middle. Having a success box will allow you to easily connect with the really beautiful parts of yourself. I haven't actually done this yet, but I am planning on doing it. And if you do it, I would love to see a photo, or I'd love you to share it. So put something in the comments if you're planning on creating a success box, because it's a great way to reconnect with all the reasons why you absolutely are good enough. And it's right there, all in a box for you. All you got to do is open the lid. So think about creating a success box, and it could be anything. It could be nice emails that you've received. It could be certificates, awards, medals from running a race, whatever you feel needs to go in there, you put it in there. I also recommend looking out for opportunities to offer kindness and compassion to other people, because the reality is when we offer compassion to others, when we lift other people up, we lift ourselves up at the same time. And if you don't believe me, try it. Offer some kindness to someone and notice how you'll have a good feeling about yourself, and they'll have a good feeling too from your act of kindness. It really does make a difference. And that might be volunteering for a local charity, even just putting some money in a local donation box or handing some food out to someone. It could be absolutely anything, whatever works for you. It could just be allowing somebody to go in front of you in the queue in the store, or giving up a parking space to somebody who's in more need than you are. Whatever it might be, those small acts of kindness and compassion will lift you up. They'll make you feel good about yourself. Now, there's a video right next to me that talks about the link between alcohol, anxiety, and depression. I'd like you to check that out next. I think it will help you get a much deeper understanding of the relationship between booze and the negative thoughts that we can have. You can click on it now and watch it straight away. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the button on the screen and you can subscribe and become part of this amazing community. And I'll see you again on the next video very, very soon.